Hi guys, welcome back to the Spurred On podcast. It's Thursday and this is going to be the Crystal Palace preview. However, there has been some big news in the press this morning, and from a credible source, Miguel Delaney in The Independent says that Tottenham are very much looking to spend the majority of their transfer money this summer for looking at a wide forward, and more particularly, they're looking at either Pedro Neto, or Eberechi Eze from Crystal Palace. So Neto from Wolves or Eze from Palace. And you'll know, if you are a regular follower of this channel, that I've been talking about our need to look at proven Premier League pacey wingers with kind of dribbly winger attributes to really make the most of the Ange system. And I've talked a lot about Neto, Eze and Elise. Now, some of the talk is that also Manchester City are heavily interested in Eze. That interests me because last summer, Manchester City went hard for Michael Elise, as did Chelsea. That's Eze's teammate at Crystal Palace, another fantastic talent who has been ripping it up in the Premier League. But I do wonder whether now, because of Elise's injury proneness, he's had a lot of injuries this season, whether maybe Manchester City are stepping back from looking at him and instead looking at Eze. And then also, Delaney talks about how Pedro Neto is interesting Arsenal. But he gives a caveat that he says that he thinks Arsenal are going to look to spend most of their money in other positions. So could that free up an opportunity for us to go and get Neto? Obviously, he had an unbelievable performance against us at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium just a couple of Saturdays ago. But I do love him as a player, explosive and incredibly smart on the ball. Very, very kind of football brainy. Just pace to burn, and also a great finisher and great kind of cutter back player when he gets to the byline, as we saw as he absolutely threw Emerson Royal for a hot dog against Spurs and then laid in Gomez for the finish. So I love that we're finally getting credible sources linking us to some of these big names. I think similar to what we did when we spent 60 million to get Richarlison a couple of summers ago. I think Levy and Big Ange and Johan Lange are realising that they're going to have to get someone, at least one player in those wide forward positions who is proven and ready. We obviously spent a lot of money on Brennan Johnson, who is still raw potential and has played many more games this season than I would suggest he or Big Ange would have expected. And I think he will become an absolutely brilliant, vital player for Tottenham Hotspur. But obviously, it's clear we need a game changer. In fact, Big Ange even said it after that Wolves game in his press conference. He said, we're very much a team at the moment. We don't have one individual game changer who can really do that for us. And I think that's why they are sniffing around these potential deals. Delaney also says in his article that because of Pedro Neto's injury record, he also got a bad injury out for about 5 months this season, that Tottenham would look to make this a kind of appearance-based deal. Now, this seems like, best laid plans for Daniel Levy. Of course, he'll always try and make the best out of any deal he possibly can. And if he could get him on an appearance-based deal where obviously they spend a lump sum, let's say 30, 40 million, and then the rest of maybe the 20 or 30 million based on how many appearances he makes each season for the club. But I'm not sure why Wolves would allow us to do that realistically. They're going to have other clubs sniffing around Neto, and therefore they will wait until somebody comes in with the deal that is best for them rather than best for us. But for me, just to kind of end this point on this article by Miguel Delaney, it's really important that we are being credibly linked with some of these kind of bought and ready players, kind of out of the box ready, players who we can slot into our first team and will make the difference. And I really think Neto or Eze would do that. They would make the difference, and I would like to see us sniffing around Elise as well. So I just wanted to start with that one before I go on to the Crystal Palace preview. Guys, as ever, before I go on to that, thank you so much for watching and listening to this. Please do press that like button if you're watching on YouTube. Please do subscribe, and go over as well if you're watching on YouTube to the podcast platforms. Type in the Spurred On podcast. Give me a follow or a subscribe over there. Really helps. And of course, vice versa. If you're listening on the podcast platforms, come over to YouTube, youtube.com/@BarnabySlater_. I've had a few questions about my membership options on YouTube and the Patreon membership options. At the moment, it's only £1 a month, guys, and really at this moment in time, you're just supporting me being able to make this regular daily content for you. It's really helpful. And then, as I keep saying, once we've got enough members, at the moment I've got 31 members on YouTube, so I'll be fully transparent with you. Once I get up to 50 members paying £1 a month, then I will make some members-only content, some videos just for members and Patreon members who can watch just for them. So it'll benefit you though when it gets to that. The reason I'm waiting until I get to about 50 is because I just want it to be that when I do those members-only videos, there are enough of you on it to make sure it's worthwhile. And with plenty of you in different parts of the world, it's not always going to be easy for you all to get on the videos at the same time. So I just want to make it worthwhile for everyone. But thank you so much for supporting in the meantime. Let's go back, though, to the Crystal Palace preview. Home game, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It's not going to be easy. They've just got a new manager. Roy Hodgson has obviously resigned, / was pushed, / had a medical issue. Who knows where the real truth lies with that. He did a good job for them, but by the end, the Palace fans were not happy with the direction the board and Steve Parish were taking. There were banners up at Selhurst Park, and in the end, it seemed to be just about the right timing. And they've got Oliver Glasner in from Eintracht Frankfurt. Did absolute wonders at Frankfurt. Unbelievable European run. And here he is at Crystal Palace. They won their first game 3-0. Before that, they drew away at Everton. And even though he was just watching from the stands, he had them in a 3-5-2/5-3-2 formation, which also happens to be the formation that most teams seem to come to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium with now, to really play narrow and make it difficult for us to get in behind them. So I'm very much expecting this to be a difficult game. Palace currently 13th in the Premier League. You'd have to say not that bad, realistically, for a team with Crystal Palace's resources and budget. But the fans weren't happy with the style of play, I think, and that's why they've changed things. So they've won 7, drawn 7, and lost 7 of all their games. And then I like to look at the away form table, because they're coming to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and it's consistent with their overall form. They're also in 13th in the away form table. They've won 3 games away, drawn 4, and lost 6. As I mentioned, they beat Burnley 3-0 at home in their first game under Oliver Glasner, and that's impressive because they didn't have Eze, they didn't have Elise, they didn't have Gay, their captain, and also England international centre-half. Didn't have Will Hughes, who's an important player for them as well. Their previous 5 results, other than the Burnley game, 1-1 away at Everton, as I said. That's a great result at Goodison Park. We could only draw their 2-2. They lost 3-1 at home to Chelsea before that. They lost 4-1 away to Brighton before that. They beat Sheffield United 3-2 at home, and then previous to that, they lost at the Emirates 5-0 to Arsenal. Now, obviously, it's a completely new management structure, and they will have the new manager bounce, so it's not worth going too much into those, but obviously the Arsenal away game and the Brighton away game, 2 teams who try and play in a similar way to Ange, kind of expansive, quick 1 and 2 touch football through the lines, making space to make chances. So it shows that if we can play at our best and pull them out of a narrow, deep block position, then there will be opportunities for Spurs to score many goals. But I don't doubt that they will be narrow. They will sit on the edge of their 18-yard box, and similar to Wolves, they will try and smash us on the break with the likes of Ayew and Eze if he's going to be fit, which brings me to the team news. Anderson and Eze are expected to be fit. I'm doing this video before the press conferences come out, but they are expected to be fit. Eze hasn't played for a while, though, so whether he would start may be deemed unlikely. Maybe they won't want to risk him too much, because they had a terrible moment where they risked Elise coming off the bench recently, and he had a recurrence of his injury. So they won't want that to happen to Eze. But still, Elise, because of that injury, and Gay and Decore expected to be out. Will Hughes also rumoured to be back for this game. For Spurs, Destiny Udogie expected to be fit for this one after missing Wolves, but lots of doubts over Pedro Porro still, which brings up, if Pedro Porro doesn't play, will he stick with Emerson Royal playing right back, where, defensively he is decent, but obviously doesn't offer us much going forward in that inverted central midfield role? Or would Big Ange potentially take a risk, by which you could look at, could Dragushin come in at centre-half and Christian Romero play at right back? Now, he's not played right back regularly, maybe not even at all, certainly not for Spurs, but he would be comfortable on the ball in all positions. He'd defend well, and he'd be comfortable in midfield because he's very, very good on the ball. But I'm not sure. It's an idea, but it seems unlikely that Big Ange would push for that one. Another option, of course, could he bring Oliver Skipp in at right back, or Pierre-Emile Højbjerg in at right back, who, of course, would do a job in the midfield aspect of it, but how would they be fixed having to defend back against the pace of, say, Ayew, or if Eze came on? breaking down that left. So it'll be interesting to see, having watched that Wolves game and how we didn't make that many chances, whether he's willing to take a risk in that right back. I'm afraid to say my team that I'm going to give you, that I predict Big Ange will pick, shows that I think he'll stick with Emerson Royal. It's important to him to, I think, to Big Ange to give players the benefit of the doubt. If they're hard workers and they train well, that he will stick them in their right positions rather than looking at square pegs in round holes. So my team prediction is Vicario, Royal, Destiny Udogie to come back in at left back, then Romero and Van der Ven at centre half, Bissouma, Pat Matasar and James Maddison in the three in midfield, and I think he'll stick with Sonny out on the left, Richarlison in the middle and Deki Kulusevski on the right. There is an argument to bring Sonny into the middle and maybe move Richarlison out on the left, or Sonny in the middle and maybe go with Werner on the left, because Richarlison did not have a great game against Wolves, particularly with his back to goal. But again, I think he'll stick at it. I think he will stick with that team. Just a few little stats before I go. Spurs have already lost 2 home London derbies this season. In fact, our home form is much worse than our away form. We've lost 4 at home and only lost 2 away this season. That's why I feel like this is going to be a very dangerous game. Of course, Spurs are on their kind of record run of 37 games in a row having scored a goal. So if you're a betting man, put some money on Spurs scoring in this one. But also, once again, both teams to score a good bet. 8 games with no clean sheet for Tottenham Hotspur. So I would bet on Crystal Palace getting something, probably from a set piece, unless Mile Jedinak has been doing a lot of hard work in these 2 weeks, because our set piece defending has been angsty. Finally, my prediction for the score, I'm actually not very confident this time. I think Glasner will get them going. I think it might be 2-2 and a very difficult watch. I hope I'm wrong, but I think they'll play narrow and tight and deep, and it won't be easy. But anyway, let me know what you think the score will be in the comments and what your team predictions are. Thank you once again for all of the support. Please do press like and subscribe, and go over to the podcast platforms. If you're watching on YouTube, press subscribe or follow there. It's really helpful. But most importantly, come on you Spurs.